Hello, welcome to this week's episode of CXNext Live. This is your host, Ryan Lester. Great to have you here. For first-time guests, this is our weekly series. We focus on the world of customer experience, how you can define a better strategy, learn from real-world practitioners, address those core challenges that I'm sure many of you are facing these days around delivering a great customer experience. I'm at the home office here. I'm sure many of you are currently working from home, dealing with the challenges around COVID-19. It certainly is changing for all of us, the way we work, the way we interact with our colleagues, the way we certainly interact with our customers. And our team here is really focused on how we can help you, really being kind of relentlessly helpful on all these challenges we're facing around, working from home, changing our policies, keeping up with the latest trends and information. And so I know for many of you out there, people have been reaching out to me and interacting with our team. It was a very hard time. Hard personally, hard professionally, hard for our customers. So we're going to spend the next few weeks really digging into these topics, trying to help you all out there learn from what are best practices, what are companies doing, and really trying to learn from other industries. I think too often we look at the world of customer experience through the lens of our own business, and we feel like we're unique, that the challenges we have are unique to other markets or to other people in our industry. When in reality, there's much we can learn from competitors, from our own industry, and from other industries that can really help us to create a better customer experience. And that's something I spend a lot of time talking about with folks is, what are those best practices? How are companies adapting? How are employees adapting? And what are some of the common needs we see across customers and across industries? So that's what I'm really excited about for our episode today. Please feel free to share this information, post questions, post comments. We'll try to answer some of those in real time, but certainly we'll also be answering questions after the fact. We're really here to help all of you out there deliver a better customer experience, engage with your customers in better ways, and really improve the experience for your customer and your employee. And so our topic for today is one that I certainly feel from a day-to-day perspective and is impacting my life, is around how we look at the world of retail and how we look at the world of things like groceries. And grocery ordering, delivery, and engagement around buying groceries. The world of retail is really being hit hard currently. Brick and mortar stores are closed. There's a real focus on digital. There's a global focus on social distancing. So how in that world do we engage with customers really in a compassionate and interesting way, but doing that without many of the tricks that we typically would use around the personalized touch of a brick and mortar store, around, someone able to walk up and physically touch a product. These are things that we've kind of taken for granted and now are no longer options. So this week's guest is Oliver Banks. Oliver is an expert in the world of retail. He is the leader and director and consultant of OB&Co. He's an old friend. We've worked together for many years, done a number of podcasts, presentations together. And so without further ado, Oliver, I want to welcome you. It's great to have you here and great to have you be part of the CXNext Live episode today.
Brian, thank you so much. It's really fantastic to be here with you today. We're going to have a fun chat. I can feel it coming.
Yes, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a great dialogue. We always have great conversations. So
we always do.
Nothing different today. So let's start off a little bit about, you're front and center working on the front lines with retailers and brands. What are the things you're hearing from them? What are the core challenges that you see that they're really dealing with today and trying to address in this COVID-19 world?
Well, I suppose there's a couple of things to think about first, Ryan. If we were to rewind just a few weeks, let's be honest, the world of retail was not in perhaps a happy place. Of course, there were some retailers that were doing very well, but there were unfortunately many that were struggling and were challenged. So my focus is very much on the transformation side, looking to help retailers to evolve into the changing market. We've seen some big changes come in over the past few years. And now we find ourselves in a place where the whole coronavirus, COVID-19, and everything that is having an impact on in the whole marketplace is really, really putting the pinch on, really putting the squeeze on. And I think that's adding a lot of pressure to what was already quite a tough situation for many retailers, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think so much people throw in the term like digital transformation and e-commerce transformation, but in reality, this is really bring that all to a head. If you don't have a solid digital strategy and you haven't put that as kind of step number one, or you haven't optimized your supply chains or your logistics or your customer acquisition models around the world of digital, you're now really feeling that pressure.
Very much so. So I think there are retailers that have stayed away from perhaps the world of e-commerce, particularly if they major in stores, in physical stores, and they're feeling the pain now, right? Because suddenly that's everything shut down. Meanwhile, other retailers have neglected to take up the advantages of things like social media or just engaging with customers online. And again, what happens now? Well, this is the time where customers turn to things like social media. Customers turn to the digital channels, frankly, because there is no alternative. And you're either there or you've got a standing start and you're a long, long, long way behind. And I do really worry about some of those brands in this tough time, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of these things of, the companies that have that muscle memory, that have been doing it, that have, the building blocks in place, even if they're not optimized around, they're the building blocks. It's much easier for them to start shifting things more rapidly to those digital channels, to those, new ways of engaging customers. But if you're starting from scratch, it can be very challenging. And I think what's a good insight for us today that we want to dig through is that there are some industries that, maybe were behind, but now are starting to make some great leaps and bounds. That, it isn't an insurmountable task. There are things you can do, but it's being thoughtful and once again, learning from others about the right approach.
Yeah, for sure. I think, just going back to what you said, those companies that have the operating model that is set up for, increased digital usage, absolutely are really excelling at the moment. And those companies that, like I say, aren't, they're going to struggle, but there is a way, absolutely, that they can still do something. I'm a firm believer that you're never too late to take action.
Yes, I totally agree.
You don't want to throw in the towel, right? So I'd absolutely implore any company, retail or not, frankly, if you're not on the digital bandwagon, now is the time, right? Now is the time to catch up. And hopefully the folks watching this live stream will absolutely subscribe to that, I hope.
Yes, I think so too. And I think that's what you and I will spend some time doing, is kind of helping people navigate those waters. And so one thing that we were preparing for this, and we were talking about, what are some great insights people can start to really garnish or gain from folks already going down this road, is really in the world of grocery. Everyone's been looking for grocery to be disrupted. There's been talk of, folks like Instacart and others that are really going to disrupt the model. But really, at the end of the day, most people still prefer to walk into a physical grocery store, buy their products, touch and feel. And much of grocery was still optimized around that brick and mortar environment. But obviously that's totally been turned on its head. And so what are some things, I guess, early on that either are disruptions that are happening in grocery or challenges, or, how do we see grocery as being somewhat of a leading indicator of the broader digital transformation that retail's seeing?
Sure. So, I love the grocery sector. Number one, because I love food.
Yes.
And, that's my background as well. So I used to work at Tesco. I was in their internal consulting function, which is the UK's leading supermarket, and actually, very advanced from an online grocery home shopping perspective as well.
Yes.
And I've always really passionately believed that that's certainly going to be a trend for the future. And, over the past few years, we've been, from the grocery perspective, looking at things like Amazon Go as this, this is the future. But actually, are we now thinking more about grocery home shopping as the future? Yes. Certainly, there are some really exciting innovations, everything from robotic fulfillment through to actually some more interesting ways of shopping. And there's things like Walmart's in-home delivery, where they'll actually come and deliver food to your fridge. That's probably not the right time to be doing that at the moment.
Yes.
I think they've paused that service, but absolutely that is the sort of thing that we're looking at in that grocery online shopping marketplace. It's really an exciting place, very close to my heart, as I say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. I have two small kids. I travel quite a bit, and my wife's very busy with her work. And so we've been users of online grocery shopping for some time, I'd say over 2 years. And I will say that in many cases, it's been somewhat of an underinvested area. I think certainly to your point, there's been innovation, and there's companies like Amazon and Tesco and Walmart that are trying to push the boundaries. But in general, many of the user journeys were a little clunky and the process was a little tough. But I think now, grocery and retail have this really great opportunity as this amazing test bed where the velocity, the volume, the opportunity to invest is so much higher. And so there's a real interest in how can we, change this industry, to your point, forever.
Yeah.
And so, it's almost like groceries having its moment in the sun to really push itself forward and be that leading industry. Whereas, historically they were a bit of a laggard.
And it's interesting. If you were to rewind, I think it was about 10 years, there were forecasts that said grocery home shopping is going to be sort of 25% of the market.
Yes.
And actually, in reality, we're sort of high single digits, certainly in the UK, which I think is probably the leading online shopping market in the world.
Yes.
We're sort of 7-8% of the total grocery market. So still a tiny percentage. And of course, what's happening at the moment, I think it's basically about half of the world's population is under some form of lockdown, stay-at-home order now, which is frankly just incredible. We're of course seeing people turning to the internet to get their food shopping, and we've seen some companies or some customers that have never even considered doing online food shopping for a number of different reasons turn there, and suddenly now they're looking at doing every single week online food shopping. And it has been a bit clunky. Certainly, I remember we do online food shopping as a family. And I remember when we first started, it just felt really weird. It's like browsing through Amazon for something, which is fine. You can find all the info. It's a bit slow and lots of scrolling and clicking, but you've got to do that for not just like one or two items like you would on Amazon, but you're doing it for like 100 items.
And I think that's where so much of the challenge comes, is that it's not, when you go to a grocery store, I just think about, the experience of a grocery store is, and I was we were chatting about this before, and I was laughing of, we've all been to a grocery store, but when you go to someone else's grocery store, you're instantly lost in a sense of, even though it could be like the same chain, but in a different town. And you're like, well, where is this? And what is that? And which aisle should I be going down? However, once you're in an area, so once you get to kind of the pasta section, everything you need is there. The noodles are there, the sauce is there, the side ingredients are there. And so you quickly, once you acclimate, you can much more quickly navigate the system. But to your point, it's a much more unnatural process in that it requires lots of items. And there's few things that are like that in our buying journey, where typically when we're doing online buying, we're quite targeted. We know we want to go buy a new shirt or a new pair of shoes or this toy for our child. And we're usually not doing 50, 100, 200 item purchases in one batch. And so once again, much of the buying process is very different.
Yeah, and even things like the range is very different. If you're buying, I don't know, a blue shirt, you go into your preferred clothing store and you've got maybe a choice of two or three to look through, right?
Yeah.
You go and you look for, I don't know, pasta, let's say, and you've got, I don't know, 20, 30, maybe 50 different SKU items to choose from.
Yes.
And that's a lot of scrolling. Now, what we don't perhaps fully appreciate is when we're standing in front of the pasta aisle, using our eyes, you can scan and see things so quickly,
so rapidly,
so incredibly quickly.
Yes.
And even walking through a store, you can just sort of spot things. When you're scrolling and you're clicking and everything, it is a bit weird, and it does take a bit of getting used to. So I think absolutely that has been some of the reason why we've seen this slow adoption. But right now, what's happening is because people are being forced to do online shopping and they're wanting to do it again and again because, frankly, they want to stay safe, right? There is that added incentive of persevering with it. And then once you get used to the user interface, once you get used to the way of doing it, once you actually begin to build some favorites in your account and so on, it becomes so much more efficient. And you can suddenly start to see some of the key benefits of actually, I can do my shopping a little bit at a time. I can do my shopping sitting on the sofa whilst watching something on the telly or Netflix or whatever. So you can
Yes.
begin to see some of those coming through. And I think it's a really interesting shift that when we come out of this coronavirus global challenge, whenever that is, those people that have now been trained to do their online food shopping week after week after week, are they going to go back so readily to the store for the big weekly shop? We've seen the decline in the big weekly shop over a long period of time. Is this the next evolution that actually I'm just going to do it now from home? And that sort of small market share, is that the time where we're going to see a big jump? It's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. Now, I want to revisit that in a moment. For those of you that may have just joined, this is our weekly CXNext live series. Every week, we do a live episode where we talk about challenges in customer experience, building a strategy, learning from real-world practitioners. This week's topic is we're talking about the world of retail and specifically the world of grocery and how that industry is being significantly disrupted due to COVID-19 and the way we're all changing and living our lives. Joining me this week is Oliver Banks, who's really an expert in the world of retail and works with retailers on a daily basis around the world of customer experience. Oliver and I have been talking about how there's this really renaissance moment that's happening to the world of grocery on how they engage their consumers, how consumers are buying, and this rapid acceleration towards online buying and online delivery of product. But that it's a very different process than traditional retail, where you're buying multiple products and there's multiple SKUs and really, there's a change in the way we engage as consumers. One thing, Oliver, that I really liked you just mentioned is that, there's a change in consumer behavior. And I think one thing that we can learn a lot out of, at a macro level, that we can learn a lot out of grocery that I think is relevant to anybody that's in the world of customer experience, is how once consumers find a different way of doing something, they often find it hard to go back. And I think what's interesting in this opportunity, and let's just kind of expand this beyond just grocery, is that, in this world where maybe people have really long hold times, or it's hard to find information, or maybe it's challenging to get the right information, consumers may be looking for new ways to engage. And if you can change the way you engage with them, so let's say you start to shift them to digital channels, or you start to shift them to self-service, or you implement a chatbot and that becomes a way they engage, and they're like, wow, I never thought to use this in the past. Normally I'd pick up the phone and make a phone call, but in this new world, I'm open to trying new things because I know things are hard for everyone. And so I think there's this really, and I really want to dig into this point with you, is there's this really unique opportunity now to kind of change the way that consumers engage and lead that change, because there is disruption and you can lead through that disruption. So I think that's a really great point that you made.
And I think it's absolutely a time of global innovation across every industry, across even every element of every industry. I mean, just look at what we're doing right here, right now. We're both at home.
Yes.
We're chatting. Obviously, we've had the pleasure of the internet to connect across the world for a long time, but sometimes it just takes something a little bit extra to push things into what's going on. And I think this working from home trend, again, it's going to shift things.
Yes.
Everything from the customer experience, and then even working back the employee experience, which of course is so key to be able to drive effective customer experience. And I think it's the dawn of a new era. No one really knows exactly what it's going to be like, but for me, it's absolutely going to evolve. It's going to evolve faster probably than we could have anticipated, but along the same veins. That's what I think. So if you were thinking of going in a certain direction, my guess is that direction is probably still right, but it's going to be faster and it's going to be furious as well.
Yeah, well said. I totally agree with that. And then I like that you mentioned as well is that so much of customer experience is the employee. And I think, once again, we have to think about the employee part of this and all those externalities of, how are employees going to be engaging with customers? What does that look like? How are we going to manage employees working from home? So, maybe in the old world, I just posted a recent article about a great pizzeria out of Cincinnati, Ohio, here in the US. And, they've been around for many years. They have an established customer base. They have a little jingle around their phone number. And that was the way they engaged. But in this new world, they can only support the call center in a certain way. But they still want to be able to provide a great product and a great service to their customers. So how do they balance that with digital channels and maybe the flexibility that digital brings but at the same time, not losing that customer base that relies on them for a great dinner. And so I think for all of us, we have to think about, hey, to your point, we know digital was coming, and maybe we were investing, and maybe we tried chat, or we, tried, doing some more on our website, or maybe trying some new messaging channels. But maybe this is the moment to then really accelerate that work in a more strategic way versus it being kind of a side project.
And another thought, just to add on to what you were saying, it's actually very easy to go digital, right, and lose the personality that frankly your customers really love. It's so easy. You could go very vanilla, very standard, bog standard, and people just fall out of love with you very quickly. And certainly in these tough times, people's loyalties are probably a bit more fragile. It's a bit more easy to make a mistake, and a bit more easy than for a customer to swap to another supplier. So I think there's some really interesting parts in there, and it absolutely starts, as I say, go and understand the DNA of your brand and how your brand is really helping support your customers. What's the point, right? What is the relevance? What is your purpose as a brand? And absolutely that should sit front and center of your customer experience, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's digital, whatever. It's absolutely so important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And I think to your point, it also goes back to what are you as a company? How are you being customer centric? And what about being customer centric is, what are your founding principles? Is it, speed of delivery? Is it the high quality of service? Is it, low cost, but, high value? What are those things that kind of are in your DNA that make up your brand? And then how are you then building those into this next wave of transformation? So, maybe it's, hey, we want to be the easiest brand to work with. So back to your point around grocery, okay, how do we make it really simple to say, hey, we're going to give you a recommendation engine for your first few orders that says, tell us a little bit about yourself. Here's what a typical customer like you would buy. And then you deselect and remove many of those options around SKUs. So it's like, hey, these are the top 100 things that the average family buys. Click here and they're all in your cart, and then you can remove or adjust things as needed. But I think those are the things that, as we're changing and evolving, how do we make that process much easier for a customer who's maybe going through this journey for the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that whole discovery point is a really interesting point as well, as we sort of lean towards digital channels. We touched on it earlier, your eyes, whatever it is, your eyes can browse so much, so quickly in a physical setting. When you move to digital, it's easy to lose track of that ability, right? You restrict what you can see on, what's that, 4-inch screen or whatever. There is only so much you can see. And I think that is another consideration for any company as they start or continue to embark on a digital transformation, particularly in this current climate. You can really restrict the discovery and sort of that's the exciting element of your experience as well. So absolutely, things like that play out in the grocery market, which is a big market for doing impulse purchases. I've just walked past something, didn't even know that product existed, or I've never heard of that brand. Well, that looks tasty. I haven't had that for a long time. And you're filled with ideas as you're walking around a supermarket. But flip that to a digital online, scroll, click. It's much harder. And I think that's absolutely going to be something that we see a lot of innovation over probably the next 12 months. I'm sure there'll be some in a faster period of time as well.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I like that you've mentioned that's an important factor as well is how do you put front and center what's most valuable to the consumer and also on the back end to the employee, but also give those kind of delightful moments of exploration. And so I think also as brands are, what we're seeing in some of the work we're doing is there's also multiple ways you want to engage the consumer. So think about, on your app or on your mobile website where you're trying to drive purchase, let's really simplify that, make it very easy, make it something that's approachable at the first step. And then you can put, more layers of complexity further in. But to your point, if I want to go buy something, don't make me have to click through 7 different menus to go try to find items. Make search easy or make it easy to, create my basket for the first time. But if, let's say, I'm an existing customer and I've gone through the buying process, and I may have a lot of questions now about, food safety, or what items are safe, or how should I be cleaning things once I get them home. Putting all that information front and center in the beginning can be overwhelming. It's too much. You've now put 8 layers of things for me to have to dig through, and now I have kind of analysis paralysis or decision fatigue, and now I'm burnt out as a consumer. But you may want to put those things on your support sites or on a post purchase click. So I've purchased, and now all of a sudden I get options around, hey, do you have customer service questions? Do you have delivery questions? But make all those things, once again, easy to find. And so I think that's another important part of this new world is, in the world of digital, everything is accessible. We have, unlimited access to every product, every service, every piece of information. But how are we curating that in a way that's easy for the customer to engage with when it's appropriate?
And you've hit on one of the things that I think is just so fascinating about grocery as a whole industry, is that shoppers really value lots of different things. Go to a product in your cupboard, anything, flip it around and have a look at the back. How much information is on there that actually some of it is legal, but there's a lot of information, whether it's ingredients, whether it's, the amount of calories in it, or what, recipe ideas. There's so much on there. Yes. And it's not there for everyone, but each part is there for someone. So maybe if you've got a nut allergy, you are looking very specifically for something. You don't care how many calories it's got, but you specifically want to know that. But equally, if you're on a diet, you don't worry about the nuts, probably, maybe, but you're there looking at the calories. Or maybe you're thinking about, how can I use this product? Everyone is looking at that very differently. Now, if you suddenly take that whole idea into the grocery home shopping market, again, you've got a lot of product description to fit on there, and people want to know where they're looking for. On a physical product, it's easy to quickly see, where are the calories. I can bump straight in. If I'm scrolling down, it's another challenge. So I think there could be some personalization there of the shopping experience as to what is important. And we've certainly already seen some filters that sit on top of home shopping catalogs that say, actually, I want to look only at vegan products, and it will just filter everything out that does not fit that criteria. So I think we'll start to see more of that allows us to personalize for each of us what that shopping experience looks like. And I think that's a really exciting future innovation, I suppose.
Yeah, that's great. I couldn't agree more. And so much of it, to your point, is just access to information, organizing information, making it, once again, taking the onus and the burden off of the user and putting it on you as to how you make it accessible and easy.
It's funny, isn't it? Because that's that's one of the USPs of, online, right? The availability and visibility of information.
Yes, exactly.
And suddenly we're like, I need overload.
Yes, yeah. Well said. Totally agree. I just wanted to do a quick check here. So for those of you that may have joined partway through, this is CXNext Live. It's a weekly series we do focused on the world of customer experience, helping you out there with your strategies, working on, learning from real world practitioners, addressing many of the challenges we're seeing in, the changes around COVID-19. So we're here each week with these live episodes. Great to have you here. Feel free to ask questions, engage, and we'll do a lot of follow-up after the episode as well to help all of you with your specific plans around impacts and changes to your business, the way you work, maybe even working from home. Joining me this week is Oliver Banks. We're focused on the world of retail, what's happening in the world of retail related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and then using grocery as some great examples of an industry that wasn't really leading the charge in digital transformation and now really is. Oliver and I have been talking through examples of where they're driving forward in the world of digital transformation, some challenges, but also some great opportunities to really change the way you engage with your consumers and your employees, and using this really as an opportunity to drive that change. We've talked a lot of different examples of ways you can address some specific challenges, things you can learn from other retailers. Oliver, I guess a couple things I wanted to touch on before we spend our time together is, I guess if you look at the world of retail, what are areas that maybe grocery is very different than the rest of retail? And are there some other parts of retail that you're seeing some real innovation that maybe is relevant to other industries? So, the world of finance or maybe telcos or other industries. So are there other things that maybe is not impacting grocery as much, but that's trends you're seeing in broader retail?
Well, I think there's plenty of trends, right? And if we were to rewind, back to Blockbuster's time, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, something like that, look how much that whole world has evolved in the past 10 years. And it's all starting from a consumer facing perspective and absolutely will explode. I think there are some really big innovations happening in retail. I think one of the big ones is this sort of whole personalization of discovery. So Stitch Fix are a company where actually if I don't really like clothes shopping, they'll send me a box of clothes chosen by a personal stylist based on what I've liked or not liked. So they'll send me a range of stuff and I'll say, yes, no, I can return what I don't like. Not very good from a returns perspective, fine.
Yes.
But they begin to then tailor what's going on in my head. What is my style? And how can I essentially codify that and supplement it with a human stylist that knows what goes well together from a sort of an artistic perspective, I suppose. And I think that sort of element is a really interesting area that I'm looking forward to seeing how that explodes beyond clothing. It'd be great to see how that works in a grocery market.
And I even like that, tying back to a previous point we made, where there's different ways to deliver information and to engage, and you don't want to overwhelm a consumer. But to your point, exploration of shopping is so critical. And I think that's a factor in any part of our lives, whether it's, health and wellness or our financial future or, even things like travel and hospitality. But much of it is, there's times where we know what we want and we just want to find it. But there's times where we want to be delighted by learning something new and being surprised and kind of taking more of a passive role. And I think your point, there's a really good one with someone like Stitch Fix, which is tongue twister, which is that, I have my preferences and there's certain things I know I want. Hey, I always want to have a blue shirt or a purple shirt in this case in my catalog. But I also am open to exploring some new things that maybe I didn't know I would like. And there's that like analytics part of it of like and curated part of it of like, help me find what I want. But then there's the other part of it that's, give me the human empathy part of the experience, which is you're the expert, make my life better, show me a better path. And I take more of a passive role. And I think that's another important aspect of this that, for grocery or whatever industry, to your point, is something that's important that shouldn't be missed.
Absolutely. And it, really dives into, the potential opportunities with AI and, machine learning as, humans can start to train these complex algorithms as to how to best solve a problem, how to best fulfill a purpose. In Stitch Fix's example, what clothes should I select? But that same concept could be used anywhere across any industry, right? How do you best help a customer choose your product? What's going to be best for them? And actually, how can you then continue over time to learn more about that customer? What's worked, what's not worked? If you're providing, let's say, marketing services, very different from retail, actually, how are you going to work out what both hits your clients' preferences, but also their customers' preferences? How are you going to then take that, learn it, evolve it into your next project? I think that whole sort of, I suppose, continuous improvement is again, it's an exciting part for sure.
Yeah, I think that the thing I like as well, when you think about the way we engage with information and content and even buy, is we tend to kind of have two roads. One road is, I always like to think about this for myself, of like, one road is the world of a Google search, which is we click on something, or we put in a term, and then we want to find a click and get to our outcome. It's about get me to my destination as fast as possible. The other side is the world of YouTube, where you'll click on a video and then all of a sudden you'll see the right-hand side and you get all these other options and you're like, oh, I'll click on that. And then you get lost for 20 minutes, why? And you're like, how did I end up on this video? But it's this like the delight of the exploration. And I think that, it is critical as we look at kind of where we're going in the world of retail, of balancing those two, of ease of access of information, pointed, directed, help me find what I want and help me buy it, versus the exploration and journey of, hey, I didn't know I was going to be interested in this, but you've exposed it to me, and now you're a more valuable brand for me as a consumer. And I think it's similarly on the employee side, where the employees want the tools and resources, your agents or your frontline employees want the tools and resources to be effective and efficient, but at the same time, they want the option to go consult and, engage with their customers in a human way. And, I think employees love working at places where they're given the freedom to, delight the customer and engage with them beyond just moving on to the next person.
Yeah, I think so. And as the TikTok generation increasingly grow up and expect everything to continually be tailored and personalized to them, that's only going to go one way, in my view. And so yes. I can absolutely see from an employee experience perspective that whole personalization opportunity is enormous. How do you want to be paid? How do you want to, level up your holidays or your benefits? And actually, do you want the same benefits that I do? Because, maybe we're in different life stages. Maybe we just value different things in our everyday life. And actually, what you value and what I value might be different. So I think there's that huge opportunity to really say, I want to provide you as an individual the best employee experience so you can serve our brand. And that might mean different things. It's not going to be perhaps a solid locked down policy written in stone that everyone complies to or not.
Yeah, and that's great. And I think that also shows that, people talk a lot about customer journey mapping and customers, to your point, tailored customer offerings. I think it is that we want to try to optimize as much as we can, but at the same time, we really want to give that flexibility to the consumer. And I think to your initial point is this is a great time to learn and to give those open pathways where we're not constricting people to, this is the way we've always done it, or this is the way our customers have historically bought. So we're giving them some bandwidth and freedom to go figure out what that next thing is that is going to delight them in a new way.
Absolutely. And this crisis, as bad as it is, it absolutely also presents all of us with a huge opportunity to do something different, to put ourselves out of our comfort zone and really say, what is the art of the possible? And, actually, you might surprise yourself just a little bit or a lot with what is possible when you put your mind to it. It's an exciting time, as well as scary. Of course it's scary, but it is absolutely exciting.
No, I agree with you. I think, we needed to have a mind towards the challenge that faces ahead, but I also think there is a great opportunity to look at the future and what that future can be. Well, Oliver, I really enjoyed our conversations today. You always bring a lot of insights and a lot of passion that certainly comes through for the world of retail. So I want to thank you so much for joining.
Well, Ryan, thank you. It's been a real blast. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a little while now. So thank you so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I certainly will plug as well. You bring a lot of great insights and resources. You do a lot of posts and information on the world of retail across industries or across use cases. So I'd recommend anybody out there that's living in that space, please check out Oliver's company, OB&Co, and also check out all the great content he puts out. There's a lot of wonderful insights there for all of you out there. So I want to thank.
If anyone's a podcast listener, then my podcast is the Retail Transformation Show as well, which we dive into all of this a whole lot more.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And thank you for joining. Great to have you here.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yes. And so for all of you out there, once again, thank you for joining our weekly series of CXNext Live. This is a series we focus on the world of customer experience, helping you with your strategies, your challenges, learning from real world practitioners, just like Oliver. And we're really here to help you. A couple other key points is we have a big event coming up on May 12th, CXNext, which is our annual event. We're taking it virtual this year, which we're very excited about. You can register for that. We'll post some information about that as well. We also are working to help everybody out there dealing with this current pandemic. We have a rapid response FAQ tool, an FAQ web widget that we've deployed or made available that you can use for your business to more rapidly answer specific customer or employee questions on how COVID-19 is impacting your business, changes in your policies. Think about this as a frontline way to engage your customers and employees to help them better address how they can interact with your company and how they can get the answers they need. So we'll post more information about that, but please feel free to check that out. We'll also be doing these weekly series, additional posts, blogs. Once again, we're really here to help you address these challenges in this very trying time. Next week, we'll be digging into the world of deeper, more technical support. We'll be talking about some technology that we're working on around augmented reality and a product called Rescue Live Lens, and focusing on how do you help to engage folks or empower folks like field service personnel or insurance, or even people like a telco who are trying to install products in your home. We're changing the way we work, and oftentimes it's very hard to do a truck roll to get someone to go to a physical site. So how can you leverage technology to better engage your consumer while at the same time keeping your employees safe inside their homes or in a safe environment? So we'll be touching on that next week. So I want to thank you again for joining. Please send us questions and comments. We'll respond to those. And we wish you the best of luck in your continued journey in creating a great customer experience and dealing with this global pandemic around COVID-19. Thank you so much for joining. It's wonderful to have you here. Feel free to share this recording. Feel free to send us posts and comments. And thank you so much again for joining. Take care and take care of yourself.